All right, Ambassador, very happy to have you on our show once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here again.
We're always delighted to have you. Thank you so very much for coming to see us. Now, today we want to talk about China and the United States in reference to Africa and trade and investment. So, Rex Tillerson visited Africa, visited Nigeria. Soon as he left, soon as he got home, got fired. Was that something he said while he was in Nigeria? What happened there?
I don't think it's totally what he said while in Nigeria. We all know that the outgoing Secretary of State and the President, that they've not been in sync with one another over a number of issues, ranging from their different positions on the Iranian agreement, ranging from the Middle East that was more or less consigned to Trump's son-in-law. And of course, you recall that while Trump believed that or gave the impression that he was ready to go to war on North Korea, Tillerson and the Secretary of State for Defense and a host of others, the CIA bosses, they all took the position that diplomacy was the way to go.
One could say that this guy was elected by the people to do a certain thing. This is what we wanted you to do. And so if I hire you, I want you to help me to achieve that for which I was elected.
I think they were trying to help the president to do that. But I think the president has his own views, which is that it is my views, not yours. For Trump, it looks as if everybody was just hired to fulfill all righteousness. But the only fellow that counts is Donald Trump. But with more specifically to Africa. My first reaction actually when I read the statement coming out from Washington that the Secretary of State was going to visit a number of countries in Africa. I read 2 or 3 of the statements that was released by State Department and I got worried. And as I said in one other interview, I said, it sounded to me like 60 years or more after Africa-United States engagement. The Americans don't have a clue on how to deal with Africa. There were a number of things that created that impression that, look, they were just starting again. They were worried of things they shouldn't be worried of, like the Chinese, presence in Africa.
But they should be worried about that.
And
these are two economic superpowers.
There was a statement that was made by one of the fellows who did the press conference. He said, unlike the Chinese, we don't build anything, or we don't build something.
Who said that?
The American spokesperson for.
Okay.
And then you begin to wonder, if you don't build anything, you don't give loans, you don't trade with Africa. So what else do you want to do with Africa? Yeah. But here is also the deal. When you complain about the Chinese presence in Africa and the loans, you know this better because you work in the system. The Americans also give loans. OPIC. What did they call OPEC? OPIC.
OPIC, yes.
The
Overseas Private Investment
Overseas Private Investment.
Yes.
I think they give to private sector institutions.
Yes.
Loans.
Yes.
Which is just like what the Chinese are doing, except that probably the Chinese have done more. And they go into building, things. And there was also something they said in that press statement that I think we should be worried about. One of the spokesperson for the State Department, in answer to a question from the journalist, said, look, some years ago, the late Prime Minister of Ethiopia said to the Americans, I am buying 39 planes from you for Ethiopian Airlines. In doing that, I am creating jobs in the United States.
Yeah.
What are you giving to us in Ethiopia? Melensi died more than 5 years ago.
But what was he asking that question for? He wanted aid, or what did he want?
No. It was no.
Like, he bought planes from the United States.
He bought planes
so
exactly.
What did he want the United States
he
to
was
buy?
asking the United States.
Then he should sell something to them.
That you need to invest in this country too.
Yeah. Then he should
do whatever you want, but you need to give us something in return.
Yes.
But what I found very interesting was the State Department fellows saying that they've not been able to answer the question. They've not done anything. The Prime Minister I'm referring to died more than 5, 6, or 7 years ago. And in 7, 8 years, Americans just couldn't figure out how to deal with this. And that's exactly the same thing they want that we deal with them.
So China, what has been the difference with China?
Well, the difference is that China has been more, should I use the word, more forthcoming in a number of things. Look, you can go around, you can travel around the African continent, and you will see Chinese infrastructure or infrastructure built by the Chinese, whether railway, whether government secretariat, whether stadium, you just name it, schools and the rest of them. You find everything, cultural halls or cultural centers built by the...
For free.
Well, some of these infrastructure, some for free, some on loans. Like our own railway station and airport here, it's not free. It's on loan, and they call it a concessional loan, which is not different from what OPIC gives to the private sector, by the way. So for me, the private sector, the Americans give to the private sector at market-driven prices. The Chinese give at relatively lower concessional rate. So you cannot really complain that, you cannot really say to Africans, be careful of the loans you are getting from the Chinese, and you are not warning us of the loans we are getting from the Americans.
But you're not getting as much from the Americans now.
Again, that raises the question. Let's go back to history. A couple of years ago, I can't remember whether it was part of that Washington consensus, but you recall that many years ago, it was the same Western, the Americans, the World Bank, the IMF, and so on, that said to us, we must do A, B, C, D. Which was like, I think it was like the structural adjustment.
The so-called conditionalities.
Exactly. They said to us, you must do A, B, C, D.
In order to get
this.
Yes.
It reminded me of the late Kwame Nkrumah's message that said, look, seek ye first the political kingdom and everything would follow. The Americans, the World Bank, the IMF said the same thing to us. Do this structural adjustment, everything will follow. Investment will come, trade would come, And we went into structural adjustment all over the continent. Nothing followed. Here we are.
But I think that actually truth be looked at, we might not have really done them sufficiently. We often stopped halfway with our adjustments. When it got tough, then we would abandon them. And then therefore we couldn't achieve some of the conditions that we needed to achieve in order to get the support.
Right. But you are wrong. We did what we were supposed to do, policy-wise. What was supposed to come in to help us sustain the policy didn't come in.
No,
investment didn't come in.
They give the money in tranches. So when you do this much, they give you some money.
The point is,
when you go that farther, they give you something. But you didn't go further. You stopped halfway.
Investment did not, because investment was not coming in.
It won't come automatically. It takes time. You gotta consolidate what you have done.
Look,
that's what happened for the most part. Why do you think that the Americans are suspicious of Chinese influence in Africa? What is it? Political? Is it economic? What are they seeing down the road to make a telecin, so to speak, warn Africa to be careful what they're getting from
Number
China?
One, I actually beginning to think, knowing what we now know, that it's probably part of that led to his being sacked by his boss. Because look, again, reading this press release from Washington, I did not see the Trump impact in that to say that Trump approved for this trip to, And you know that Trump seems to be preparing, Trump seems to have shifted from his position during the campaigns on China to a position now where he's very fond not just of the Chinese, but of the Chinese president himself.
Xi Jinping.
Now, exactly.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, if the Chinese leadership at that time had said the chairman was going to become a life president, America would have cried out against it. Yes. But Trump held it and said, Trump said, we should also do something like this.
Maybe he should think about that himself. Yes, you're right. So, in fact, that's a good segue into the next question then. So now that Xi Jinping is he actually president for life, or he can be president for life? I think that's what
he's expected to be president for life along the line of Chairman Mao.
Yeah.
I think
so now that he's that strong, well, what does that mean for a new China? Are we going to see a new China because now you're president and then you're president for life? Makes you more powerful.
I think we're just going to see a China that is going to grow from strength to strength.
So it's good for China what they did?
It's good for China, and I think it's good for the world. I mean, not the life presidency.
What if he changes?
Not the life falters. Not the life presidency.
Yes.
I just think that it's leadership.
Okay.